In the 2013-14 season, Kevin Love's final season in Minnesota, he averaged a whopping 26 points, 12.5 rebounds, over 4 assists, and over 8 free throw attempts per game. He was considered the best post-up player in the entire league, the best power forward in the league, and arguably a top 5 player, depending on who you ask. Offensively, he was as complete of a player as you'd get at that position. Unfortunately, the issues with Minnesota were pretty rough. Not only was the roster very poorly constructed, but the relationship between Love and the front office accumulated a lot of tension over the years. Back in 2011, there was some uneasiness surrounding Love's contract situation. Basically, every NBA team could give one player a designated 5-year max contract. Love, of course, wanted that contract, and obviously it made sense. He was the franchise player and already made 2 All-Star games by the age of 24. That's who this designated contract is supposed to be for. But instead, Wolves owner Glenn Taylor publicly said, "I don't think Kevin Love is a star because he hasn't led us to the playoffs." Even Wolves GM David Kahn reportedly marched into the locker room after a loss and thrusted a contract offer sheet into Love's hands. At this point, the contract negotiations have been going on for months, but the Wolves still refuse to give Love that designated 5-year max. As a result, he signed a standard extension and moved on. 2 years later, in 2014, he would get traded to Cleveland. And this is where our story begins. At the beginning of his time in Cleveland, it was quite clear from the start that he would be the third option on the team. There were comparisons between this Big Three and LeBron's old Big Three in Miami, so naturally, people would assume the big man would be the third option. But the thing is, Love was considered a better player than Kyrie back then. Kyrie was very popular, no doubt about that, but he hasn't led the Cavs anywhere either. And Love, by all metrics, was firmly the better player. That's the first thing we should keep in mind. Love was essentially relegated to the third option immediately after being the man of the Wolves for such a long time. So it takes a lot of time to adapt and adjust to his new role, especially playing alongside ball-dominant guys like LeBron and Kyrie. From the beginning, he had plenty of struggles. His usage rates plummeted, his points, rebounds, assists all dropped off significantly. And perhaps most surprisingly, his percentages dropped, which you wouldn't expect since he's now playing with 2 other stars, so scoring should have been easier. However, in his new role, Love was now taking nearly half of his shots from three-point land. Barely 20% of his shots came at the rim now. This trend would continue for the next 4 years as well, as this would be his role now. For the first couple years in Cleveland, especially in his first year, you would see the Cavs try to feed him the ball in the post to get him going. This would happen for a few possessions, but then they would stop doing it because either Love was not hitting his shots, or LeBron and Kyrie wanted to do something else. However, while reporters have constantly compared players, especially this Cavs Big Three to Miami's Big Three, it was a completely different scenario. In Miami, LeBron teamed up with 2 established veterans who were around his age. This time, LeBron teamed up with 2 younger players who wanted to play their own way, their own style, especially Kyrie. In Miami, Wade and Bosh adjusted their games to fit alongside LeBron. But in Cleveland, LeBron was trying to fit in with Irving and Love. He wanted to give them more opportunities as opposed to forcing them to be supporting players. Basically, the entire 2014-15 season was like this. The Cavs had an identity crisis and didn't know which way they wanted to go. According to an article back in November of 2014, Dylan Bear said, quote, "What this all really boils down to is LeBron James changing to fit this team. No matter what Irving and Love do, this team's success will be marked solely by how well LeBron can transition. The style of play for Miami and Cleveland will be very different, and LeBron won't have nearly as many opportunities to perform the run-and-gun style that he utilized in Miami if he wants to help the development of Irving and Love." However, over time, this experiment would change. Eventually, the team would be centered around LeBron, again, just like in Miami, while Love continued to be the third string. Most of the time, we'd see this power struggle, and the offense would stagnate quite often. You'd have two guys who are essentially taking turns running the offense, while everyone around them has to fit in. Love had trouble doing that, and he's made it known that he wants to be involved more. Then, at one point, LeBron even tweeted out that infamous message, which was obviously directed at Love. The tweet said, "Stop trying to find a way to fit out and just fit in. Be a part of something special. Just my thoughts." Yeah, it's safe to say their first year together was rough. What made it harder for Love was that he wasn't exactly an amazing player at the other end of the floor. Everyone was comparing him to Bosh when it comes to his role, but Bosh was an incredibly versatile defender, and he was the perfect fit for Miami's blitzing defense. Love, on the other hand, was a terrible defender for most of his career. And on offense, half the time the Cavs were playing him like he was Ryan Anderson, standing in the corners or the elbows and waiting for the pass, then launching a three. It also didn't help that Love also had anxiety and problems with depression, which essentially just amplified this whole situation. He lost confidence in himself, too. Plus, you add on all the pressure from the media and him taking the blame every time they lost, all the stress was really getting to him. Through the next few years, even with their ups and downs, the Cavs were still the best team in the Eastern Conference due to their sheer talent. Love would slowly integrate himself within the offense, but it was tough with all the inconsistent touches, and also a lot of injuries. From a shoulder injury to knee surgery and then foot surgery, there were all kinds of things holding him back. But fast forward to the summer of 2018, Kyrie was already gone by then, and LeBron recently signed with the Lakers in free agency. Now, Love was all alone. The Cavs were no longer championship contenders, and this era was over. But a new era would start. Now that Love was the lone star on the team, there were some lofty expectations. And some questions too. Will he return back to form? Will he go back to averaging 26 points a game? What's gonna happen now? Well, it turns out it's been rough. He would sign a 4-year, $120 million contract in that same summer, as Cleveland made it clear they had faith in him. They had faith he would solidify himself as the new franchise player of the team. Unfortunately, for the entire year, he struggled with injuries. He suffered a foot injury that was so bad he said it affected his ability to walk. And even when he came back, he never had the chance to fully recover and get back into shape. In the 2018-19 season, he appeared in 22 games and played quite poorly. It was expected he'd come back slow, but now in the 2019-20 season, he's been playing better, but not exactly all-star caliber. According to Love, he's in the best shape of his life, yet his play on the court does not reflect that. There have been many jokes about Love being too skinny, like maybe he should gain weight again and go back to being fat Kevin Love like in Minnesota. Those were the years when he was in his true prime. Maybe it has to do with age too, as he's getting up there in years. Regardless, he hasn't been playing anywhere close to his former superstar self in Minnesota. What's even worse is that he's completely fed up with the team. There have been multiple instances where he showed visible frustration during the middle of a game. Love also requested a trade back in December, where it was reported that he wanted to be traded to a contender. As a team, the Cavs have been absolutely awful. Love is playing decently well, but not great. Colin Sexton has extreme tunnel vision every time he drives to the basket. Chetty Osman is not getting any better. And Tristan Thompson has somehow regained his form and escaped from the Kardashian curse. But his numbers don't mean much on a team that's this bad. Since requesting a trade, Love has also stated that he'd be happy if he remained in Cleveland too. When asked about it, he said, quote, "I will be happy if I'm still here. I fully plan on continuing to help these guys, being a leader with all the veterans. And this place, Cleveland, the fans, they've been really good to me, so yes." It seems more like he was doing damage control, and realistically, I think he does prefer a trade to a contender. Maybe by the trade deadline he'll be gone, but that's if some team is willing to take on his massive contract. Anyway, that's all folks, that sums up Kevin Love's time in Cleveland thus far. Do you think he'll ever return to being the Kevin Love we all knew in Minnesota? Or do you think this is all we're gonna get? A 17-point scorer who takes half his shots from the 3-point line? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.